Hello, this is day 2. God, it feels like day 10 of the American College of Rheumatology 2023. I really can't believe it's only day 2. I'm saying that. I'm talking to Deb, who's eating a nice big old potato wedge.
Skin.
Oh my gosh, and we are having a cocktail as
Yes.
well. It has been a long day. You might be able to tell just by looking at me. I am exhausted, but in a good way. So one of the things just to bring your attention, which has been different at ACR this year, is that we have so many different meetings with potential funders that I personally haven't been able to attend as many sessions as I usually do, but that's okay because I'm still going to make sure that I attend the same amount that I always do. So we're just going to extend it out a little bit because we actually have access to sessions past while we're here in person. So over the next week, I'll be definitely reporting back so you can extend it and go with us. But I did want to give you a little bit of an update on some of the things that we've been seeing or that I've been seeing in addition to the meetings, which have been really meeting heavy, but also a session that I saw that was reviewing several different abstracts, which are summaries. They're like big posters. Imagine like a 4-foot long poster that has bullet points of summaries. That's an abstract. And so it's essentially telling you all of the latest and greatest in certain areas of our diseases. So I'm going to give a report on that as well. One of the things that I do just want to also say, because we don't just report back what we see at ACR, we explain what we're seeing, how we're seeing it, how it might be relevant to your disease journey, but also how research works so that you all understand. So something is that I just wanted to point out is we can't dictate what is here and what the researchers are presenting. So while there might be topics, tell me more about new treatments in X, or tell me more about diet, or tell me more about this particular topic that I'm interested in. The things that research flows, it ebbs and it flows. So what they're studying, they only are going to talk about things when it's time to present actual findings. It just, we don't know what we're going to come across when we come here. So I just want you to keep that in mind. And if we aren't talking about a treatment for you, or you're like, I really want to hear about this, let us know. We'll do our best to find out for you what is happening in that research. I just don't know that it will be presented in a session or something that we'll cover now, because we just can't report back on things if it's not that part in the research where they're reporting back. Anyway, I did want to just one session that I was able to go today, which I really enjoyed because it was talking about several different things that were happening in research, and it was specifically in this one around psoriatic arthritis. Now, if you don't have psoriatic arthritis, don't say, oh my gosh, I don't have psoriatic arthritis, this isn't relevant. It is relevant because I'm going to streamline it for you to tell you why, even though it wasn't psoriatic arthritis, even though it's psoriatic arthritis, and if it might not be your diagnosis, why it's still relevant. If you've gone with us for the last couple of years, you may have heard the term precision medicine, and that is essentially it's in the cancer space, it's been moving into the rheumatology space, and what it's doing is it's understanding subgroups. Our diseases are very unique per individual. That's why some of you respond to an Enbrel, or some of you respond to Cimzia, and then others are like, that did nothing for me. Okay, that's why we need precision medicine, or understanding subgroups. And so in doing that, there's been a lot of research in the last few years on how we can revise our research to start focusing on subgroups. So in addition to a subgroup of male and female, which tends to be a trend that we're seeing here, they're going back, and a lot of times what will happen with research is they have to start by doing what's called a literature search. That basically means there's a bunch of, think about it like an intern. There's a lot of like interns that go through all of this data and all of these databases and all of these publications, and they find as many of them that they can around a certain subject. Then they cross compare them and they figure out, okay, here are some endpoints. Here are some things that were studied in this trial that were significant enough among all of these that we can then combine together and say, okay, there's enough data that this point was covered, and this point was covered, and this point was covered. So in one of the psoriatic trials, what they were really doing is going through all of this existing data that's out there, and they had, like, when you combined it, it was over 7,000 people, and they were studying the data, and they were starting to look at these new treatments and new targets. And when I say targets, different things in our body or molecular structure are different signatures, different cells that or genes that might be relevant to what you have, that might be different or might be in a subgroup with other people. And they also measure these on what they call the ACR20 or 40, or no, that it's 50, 20, 50, 70, 90. So what that means is 20% improvement, 50% improvement, 70% improvement, 90% improvement. For us patients, we know 20%, whatever. So we always are looking for the 50, 70, 90. So in the ACR, in this particular new drug, which doesn't have a name yet, I'm not gonna be able, it's not on market yet, but in the research, it was a lot of disease scores at 46 weeks. So think about that. If there's 52 weeks in a year, so you're looking at that, by that point, it was at a 70%, there was a very large majority at a 70% ACR, which means they were reporting that they were 70% better. And in many cases, 90% better. That's big. So that is very promising. What I also really enjoyed about this study, and in the other studies that they were showing, is they're talking about enthesitis, and they're measuring enthesitis, which is different than joint involvement. It is often very prevalent in the spondyloarthritis diseases. So even axial spondyloarthritis, Crohn's disease, anything that falls under the spondy diseases. It is the inflammation of the tendons that connect to the bone. And so there's a lot of talk been for the last few years on enthesitis, and there was a lot of improvement in the enthesitis alone, and they did a complete breakout segment of that. So that in itself, if you have one of these diseases, is important to note, because they're not just looking at your typical joints or things that keep us in an umbrella. The other thing that I want to report back is there was a new word. We love new words. A new word. We have a glossary that we will share with you, and we try to keep these new words coming up, or even words that we might know that you hear and you're like, I don't know that. Let us know, because we want to add them to the glossary. It was called, and I don't even know if I can say it, Enthalgia. It was a cross between enthesitis and fibromyalgia. Wait, do that again. So I have to look this up, but when he said it, I went, what? I haven't heard that one yet. So they were talking about pain and pain tolerances, which also seems to be another big one here at ACR. And they were talking about how even though people with fibromyalgia weren't included in this study, particularly because there was an endpoint on measuring pain, still they were looking into this Enthalgia or something. I got to go back and play it to say exactly how to exactly say it. But essentially it is the nerve involvement in additional with enthesitis, because fibromyalgia is nerves. So that was just a new word. I didn't even know there was a measurement. I didn't know they were talking about it. Anyway, the other one was about precision medicine, and they called it immune cell profiling. And essentially very complex. I have many slides that I can share in a more specific overview, but essentially they were starting to figure out how to eliminate the heterogeneity, I always mess up that word, geneity in our diseases, which means they're all individual per person, and we're talking about the subgroups. So they're trying to eliminate that, and by doing that, they're looking into different cell structures, how some of your genes all group together, how some of your cells, what are inflamed, what's not, all grouped together. And they're doing this for psoriatic arthritis, but not just that. It's just the study that I saw today. So why is that important to you? Essentially, it's by understanding it, and that creating a thing that all of our diseases are not exactly this, are totally different. They're creating these subgroups. That's why we're seeing male and female. They're starting to look back at old research. They're starting to see who's responding to what are the symptoms. How can we differentiate these diseases so they're not just glumped up in like one big disease. So that's exciting for all of us. So I just really wanted to report back on that. And I have hit my limit of 10 minutes. I will do a separate one so I can give you a little bit of an update on the meetings that I did.